our marketplace is going to be global. When we talk about products and providing resources, it should be providing resources to a global community.
So I will quote a professor of mine. He wrote a book, actually, probably one of my inspirations for writing a book. It's called Smartest Person in the Room. And the concept is that the problem with cybersecurity today, and as it continues to evolve, is not such that we have people that are incompetent in the world of cybersecurity, right? But rather, we have people that try to be the smartest person in the room that hinders their ability to do a good job as a human.
So there are people that are all about competition, and I just don't find that value in competing with others, because I feel like it puts a limiting belief that in order for me to have, I have to take from you. And I just don't think that's true. I think I can have, and I can share some with you, and you can share some with me, or you can have and I can have our own separate thing, and that's fine.
When someone's triaging issues in your company, do they know if that assignee is out of office? Well, if they don't, then you definitely want to check out today's sponsor, Resolution's Out of Office Assistant for JSM. It automatically sets up assignees based on their PTO schedules.
Hey everyone, welcome to the summer of Atlassian. Today I have a real doctor, not me doctor, but a real doctor, Valeriana Colón. Thank you so much for being on here with me, and I'm sure we're going to have a blast. In just the last 2 minutes that I didn't get a chance to record, I feel like I missed out on so many good conversations. So let's get these on the record.
All right. Well, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be on your show. I've seen lots of your content that comes through the feeds, and I feel scared, but super excited. So dígame, ¿tú hablas español o no?
Sí, hablo muy bien. No sé cómo escribirlo, so no me gusta escribir. No me lo puedo leer más o menos, pero hablar lo mejor de los tres. No más que Jira no es un tema común en mi familia. So, como mi papá no está hablando de Jira, so todo los Jiras y sprints y story points, todos en inglés. So,
Sí, no es fácil para hacer todo en español, especially when it's technical. Like it's two different sides of my brain in order to get the language side and then to get the technical side and then to combine the two. Not a talent I have, but some of our creators have that talent, and I'm like, I don't know how you do this. Like,
yeah,
wow.
I can jump into a meeting, so I can jump into like a team meeting and the meeting be in Spanish, understand everything they're saying, because I've learned the common things like campos. Campos for me tripped me up the biggest. I was like,
like trash? No, la basura?
No, campo, like a field.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, I'm thinking like a soccer field, but not once in my mind did I think of a field to be a freaking field in Jira.
Field to be field, like a literal translation. See,
yes, it's like it just didn't. I was like, why do they keep calling him a campo? And I'm like, like, where's Messi or something? Like, it didn't make any sense. And
I love
like,
it.
And it just dawned on me one day. I'm like, oh my gosh, a freaking field is a field.
And me, I would have been like, excuse me, campo? Are we composting something? Just cut off. And they would have been like, Valerie, we're gonna need you to exit this meeting. I'm like, sorry guys, bye.
Yeah, most of the time though, and again in Spanish speaking Jura type of business meetings, most of the words are going to be in English, right? So they'll still say like status or board or sprint or whatever it is, right? Like those words still come through pretty clearly. And my Spanish, the one time I freaked out, I don't know if you've seen an interview. I'm good friends with Hernan. He's from Argentina.
Yeah, I just talked to him yesterday.
Yeah, well, he scheduled me to do an interview with him, I think like last July or something like that. And I told my mom, like, I have no idea what I'm going to do. And she's like, why? She's like, your Spanish is okay. I'm like, listen to him. And she's like, I have no idea. Like, my mom, native Spanish speaker, speaks predominantly only Spanish. She listened to that podcast and she's like, vaya con Dios, amigo, because she's like, he speaks Spanish so quickly, so fast. Like, I'm like, I couldn't even pick it up. So my whole time I was doing that interview, because it was all in Spanish, I was like, not only do I have to translate the Jira-ness into Spanish, but then I have to understand what he's saying.
Oh yeah. Oh no. Him and I talked about that. When you see our video come out, you'll be like, Valerie, no. And I'm like, oh yeah, I went there because I lived in Uruguay, which is right next door to his country. And Puerto Ricans speak terrible Spanish as it is. Every Puerto Rican, don't shout and hate me for saying that. You know it's true. Our Spanish, and we have a long history on why our Spanish, because we were colonialized. It was illegal to speak English or Spanish at one point in time. It became a language of affluence, of only the rich people knew English and the poor people knew Spanish. So we have a history of why this is the case. But my Spanish got even worse when I lived in Uruguay. And then forget it, Argentinians speak it a little faster than Uruguayans. And
yeah.
Whew, I was like, yeah, I'm going to have you say something in Spanish for a little bit. Then we got to switch back to English. I'm sorry.
The other thing, and maybe this is why like Jura or Agile is really not that prominent in Latin America, because like my son sees this the most. My two sons don't speak that much Spanish. Well, let me correct. My little one speaks no Spanish. My oldest one is actively teaching himself Spanish right now. But every time we're with our family, he's like, why is everybody yelling? And I'm like, nobody's yelling. Nobody. It's not.
Like, we just speak a different volume.
Yeah, it's just like a whole different energy. And he's like, I think that's the part that freaks him out the most. And I think every time that I'm in a meeting in Spanish speaking, like you really get into it. Like there would be some hurt people if they were thinking that they were being directed at them.
Yes, no. And I went into a little bit of that with him about how it's different. Like you can know the technology, but do you know the culture in order to work amongst the Latin American market, to meet the Hispanic community where they are? Because it is very different. So we work in Agile, right? That's very important. It's emphasized throughout all kinds of organizations, but Agile looks very different in Latin American countries, where the concept of an agenda, a meeting agenda, takes on a whole different look, a different vibe. Like you get into a room, we're like, are we even in a workplace? We're talking about everything besides work. Like it's very, very different. Very different. And then loudness, like it's the same with Arabic. We all don't know how to speak unless it's very, very loud. Like a room full of Puerto Ricans, it sounds like a party, and that's just our daily. And it's a volume thing. And yeah, it could be scary, and you can think that people are yelling or not understand if you're not in it, and that's not how your normal interactions
you would think
are.
a bunch of people are mad at each other.
Yes. And I used to, it's terrible. I probably shouldn't say this, but I used to talk to my Arabic speaking students. I'm like, are you saying, is this angry Arabic or regular Arabic? Please tell me the difference, because if it's angry Arabic, I'm going to need you guys to separate and to take a moment. But if this is just like buddy talking to each other, continue. I'll be
right. Yeah. No,
like,
it totally makes sense, because the same thing with my son. Like I said, he'll come out and he's like, why is grandma so mad? And I'm like, grandma's not mad. Like, what would make you think that grandma's mad? She's like, she's yelling at you. I'm like, we're just talking. Nobody's yelling at anybody.
Yeah, the cultural differences are.
But it's so weird. The part that I find the weirdest though is in my mind though, because I predominantly only speak English to my wife. And so my wife are very mellow. Like even when we get mad at each other, there's no elevating of the voice. But the moment, and even when I'm speaking with my mom in English, it's very mellow and there's no elevating of the voice. But the moment I go into Spanish with my mom, it's like everything goes intense, like quick.
You default to that cultural expectation or that cultural language. I also think I sound different in Spanish. Like first of all, I don't hear the tone that everyone else says that I have. When I hear my recordings, it doesn't even sound like me. But then when I speak Spanish, I'm like, that definitely doesn't sound like me. It's strange.
Yeah, I would say you have a bigger accent in Spanish than you do in English.
Really? Interesting.
I don't think you have a single, like your English is, I would call it flawless.
I mean, thank you. I appreciate that. I worked really hard. So when I came to the United States when I was 12 and I was bullied like nothing else in school. And I was very conscious of how I sounded, and I didn't want to sound Hispanic. It was a terrible third culture kid kind of a thing to do, to try to erase your heritage to fit in. But I definitely did that. I came to the United States, Southern California. So if you could only come to a worse part of the world to do Southern California, where everybody is blonde hair, blue-eyed, I did not fit in.
Where were you, like in the middle of Laguna Beach?
Yeah, actually, Laguna Beach was our high school rival. I was Aliso Niguel High School.
Okay,
I was a Wolverine.
You picked well, I don't want to say the worst, right? But you picked the most non-diverse portion of Southern California to go live.
Absolutely. It was beautiful. It's lovely country. We were 20 minutes from the beach. But when it comes to, at that moment in time, and it could be completely different now, the acceptance level of that environment, it was very low, and kids could be cruel, people could be cruel, and I just wanted to fit in and be like everyone else. So I erased that. A part of why my Spanish is terrible is also because I refused to speak Spanish at all, and they put me in a Spanish class. I was like, they didn't have ESL back then, so they just put me in a Spanish class. I'm like, one, people in Puerto Rico, we're dual language, so we take English classes and we take Spanish classes, and two, a Spanish class, really?
I intentionally avoided taking Spanish in high school. I didn't want to do that. I've always seen Spanish from my professional career to be a hindrance, right? Like my wife, she can't for the life of her get her tenses correct. She didn't learn her and I didn't learn English until at least kindergarten, first grade. So we waited until school. So I grew up speaking Spanish as a child until like first grade, actually, because my kindergarten was I guess I'm gonna date myself a little bit, right? When I was in kindergarten, my kindergarten was Spanish. Our school, our district, are in California, in Southern California. We're still a Spanish speaking public school system, and it wasn't until later that they switched it to English only.
That's actually kind of awesome.
Yeah, so I didn't learn English until like first grade, where I was forced to learn it. But yeah, Spanish is just something that I've never been proud of knowing. I've always worked in big defense companies where it's predominantly U.S. only, and my wife as well. And it is really hard to communicate when like a comma makes all the difference in the world, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't really know your English really, really well, it especially like I think in the Atlassian ecosystem, it's a lot more forgiving because everybody's so diverse, right? But when you are like US based only teams, US everything, like it stands out real bad.
Yeah, and then you can become self-conscious about it. It's a challenge that we have in our government organizations, and it's something that I think is an area that has to be improved. So I used to, in another life, not in this one, I was an intel analyst for the United States government, and I was in the Army. And specifically, they hire certain profiles of people so that the information is controlled. And so in a lot of our defense contractors, it's encouraged to have an English dominant culture because we want to make sure of the security of our information. And don't quote me on this. There's lots of controversy around it. But it's difficult if you want to be relevant, if you want the information you have to have a larger reach, and you want our government to be efficient. I know it's an oxymoron. Like, you want our government to be efficient. We have to be inclusive to the different languages. We have to make sure people feel comfortable about leaving out a freaking comma so that they can communicate that to the best of their skills, not necessarily to the best of their ability, but to accurately reflect the knowledge that they have in their heads. And let's face it, there is strong talent abroad when it comes to technology. And so we're missing out on all of that if we go into an English only environment. Not even just to mention the fact that there's different tools and technologies that are coming out these days that are breaking down language barriers. And so that changes the marketplace on what business and doing global business looks like. So our government can't stand isolated anymore in this English only world when our population is extremely diverse and the marketplace is now a global marketplace and not just a US only thing.
No, and you see that even in the YouTube space, right? Like Mr. Beast, one of the most powerful, most influential YouTubers on the internet, he himself comes out saying like most of my audiences don't speak English. That's why he invests so much in dubbing all his videos, because like he's like, I would reach 1/100th of my population right now if I stuck to only English.
Yeah, and I like the fact that those barriers are being broken down, that you can dub a video easier because of the technologies that exist these days. But even LinkedIn. So like I primarily market on LinkedIn. Eventually, we'll move into YouTube, but the population breakdown of LinkedIn, its majority of it is abroad. And when you look at the sector that are active users, it's such a small amount that is within the United States, that if you want those like millions of followers, and not that that should ever be anyone's goal, but if that is your goal, you're not going to get your billions just off of English
Just
speakers
the US
only.
population.
Yeah, you act just a numbers thing. And I don't think people really think about those numbers a lot when they're engaging on LinkedIn. And because I get those questions of like, why do I only see a couple of people on here? I'm like, because 1% of users of LinkedIn are active, are content creators, 10% are active engagers. And the other 90, which I gotta refine this because there's percentages in there, because if you add them up, they're like 101. And I was like, yeah, because it's technically 90.3 something, something, something. But if you round, the other 90% is lurkers. So you got to really think about these audiences out there and focus more widely on, it's a global community. Our marketplace is going to be global. When we talk about products and providing resources, it should be providing resources to a global community. I met with Tom this morning and I was like, Tom, how does it feel having a corner on the Chinese market? And he's like, yeah, I can confidently say there's only two of us. And I was like, well, let's amplify your voice, because there's only two Atlassian creators. And I was like, who's this other one? And he's like, someone who works very high up in Atlassian. So it's really on this level, it's only me. And I was like, how do we amplify your voice? Because if we don't amplify your voice, there's an entire Chinese, Mandarin, various different dialogues of Chinese speaking community that live outside of China that really don't have the ability to fully use these products to the best of their abilities. They're going to have to be self-taught without the availability of having Chinese, Mandarin resources available to him. And he wrote a book that is like this thick, let me tell you. And I know, were you a part of the book release announcement the other day on your guys? You were,
Yeah.
weren't you?
I was
Is that
there.
information widely known?
I was half asleep, half awake, but yeah, no, I was there. I mean, I was dying, to my defense.
I know. I think you were a trooper just for being there. Like you could see it in your eyes, you were drifting off. But
Yeah.
describe the book experience for you. How was writing that book? How
So
involved
writing
were you in that?
so writing the book was never something I'd never done before, something I wanted to do for a really long time. I would say writing the book itself, as the four of us organizing and divvying up the work, coming up with the topics, brainstorming, strategizing, doing all that. I think that was very fluid. The four of us work together a lot, right? And so one of the reasons that we went with four, first of all, to start off with, was writing a book is a big endeavor. It's not something that I really would have appreciated until now that I've 9 months later finished it and done it. So it was, I don't know if it was smart or the dumbest thing we did, which was divide it up into four, right? So that we could try to cut that year-long timeline into at least a fourth is was the plan, right? The plan was to publish it by the end of Christmas, by the end of 2023. And here we are 6 months later. I'm getting ready to publish now. And so I would say that team dynamic though was okay. I think where I struggled the most was and this might be a cultural thing with me, right? But I'm a C's get degrees. I am a good enough for government work type of guy, right? Like I give you the amount of effort that you need to get by, because at the end of the day, like who pays attention to the details as I'm telling this to a PhD, right?
Be surprised. Our
Yeah,
world
I'm like,
is a
I
very wide
guess
range.
Yeah, there's people out there that do, but I've never, right? There's my doctor's a fake doctor, right? And like I just don't pay attention to that level of detail. So getting the feedback back from the publisher, like this detail, and that detail, and that detail, I'm like, you guys are getting really detailed into the details. Like we
Yeah.
spent, I think, a 2 hours one day just arguing or discussing really the title of a chapter. I'm like, I
Yeah.
can't think of the last time I remember the title of a chapter that I read. I'm like, let's
And
just
we
put a
do
13 on it.
it can feel like nitpicking after a while, especially depending on the editor. Sometimes I'm like, is this a suggestion or a requirement? Like what level of urgency or importance is this to you? Like, is that title 100% important that we need to spend 10 hours discussing this thing? Or can we move on to the next suggestion that you
Right.
have? It's not easy. It is not. So I would first commend all four of you for finishing. So
Yeah.
many people start books and never get past chapter 1 because it is not easy. And it's one of those things that you start and you say, I know this is going to be hard, but I'm going to plan it out, and you prepare yourself. But then when you get really into it, you're like, I didn't realize it was going to be this much or this hard. And there is a lot of variety in it. So like people who self-publish, they can get past a lot of that. But if you have an official publisher and an editor assigned to you, and then
And a
you try to,
reviewer, and the
and a
reviewer.
reviewer,
The
and
reviewer is really where the reality hit, right? Because when the reviewer came back, it was a friend that I trust, that he's an uber smart person, right? One of the smartest people I've ever known. So when he came back with feedback, I was like, I knew where the bar was. So I was like, okay, let me rewrite half this chapter then, right? But that was like the hardest pill to swallow, where like you did the work, but then like the reviews come back in and you're like, okay, great. It's not as good, or you got to change this, or you got to change that, or this doesn't make sense. And yeah, so I don't know that I would do it again though.
no.
I don't know.
But
I don't know
in
that I
all
would.
fairness, okay, Alex, you out of all the things in the world of writing, you pick the most difficult part of writing ever. Hi, my name is Dr. Valerie Colón. I am a published author and researcher, and I can tell you, as a technical writer and editor of an academic journal, there are varying levels of difficulty within the field of writing, and you pick the hardest.
Yeah.
It's the hardest one. Could you have started with the pamphlet? Like, could
I should
you
have started
have
with a
done an
blog post. Is what
infographic?
I should have started with.
Like something smaller, something a little less technical. And the thing with technical writing, especially with around products, is then they change. So like you do all of this work, you push really hard to get your deadline, you finally make it. All four of you run past the finish line. And then some major thing changes the app and it changes how you conceptualize things. So it's like just in the book planning, you have to be very intentional to see, okay, what features do we think will be stable and have the most impact on use? Like what part of this platform? So they say there's a statistic out there that 80% of, and if you check my LinkedIn, the official stat is in there with the resource. But it's something like 80% is not actually used of most platforms, most products. And we only really use 20% of it. And it makes me cry and it makes me cringe on the inside of it because we pay for 100% and only use 20. So it's like, you got to find what is that 20%? And then how can you provide the reader value in that 20% to make sure that once it's released, it's not irrelevant in a year, 5 years. And with tech life cycles now, we're changing and advancing technology faster than I've ever experienced in my career. So the future proofing of technology and the longevity that we get out of our apps and out of our customizations, I feel like it's being cut down. And how do we keep that value? So we'll do, what is it, June 25th, 2024. Your book is going to release when? When is it coming out?
I think we got an official date. It's on Amazon, July 19th. So
July 19th. We better do a big push around your thing on July 19th. Are we going to have some reader stories?
Yeah, there's like a whole marketing effort that has kicked off as of last Friday, and so there's going to be a whole charade of activities happening.
Okay, push them all to me so that I can make sure that I attend, I like, I comment, I do the whole 9 things. And then trying to figure out, okay, so when is edition 2 going to come out? Is it a 2-year thing? Oh, I'm sorry. Like, once you publish a book, you don't want to think about edition 2, but
I don't even want to see text on the screen ever again.
I'm so sorry. There has to be an edition 2 where you do the revisions. Yeah, that's the
You are
game,
such
Alex.
a
You
good
can't
coach.
let this one just be a flash in the pan.
I
There's
know.
legacy
I'm
here.
weak. I am weak. I'm one of the weakest people you'll ever meet in your life.
I do
But this
not
is
believe
about
that
you.
for a second. I've
This
seen
is
your content. Alex, you may be able to tell these lies to yourself, but I have seen your work, so.
yes, but in video, I am. I don't know that I would. The only hesitation is like I don't know that the written word was for me. Like I
Oh,
would not.
that you're not down for that's perfectly fine. As someone who like I mentioned, I work in documentation and training. I could tell you the stats and the analytics of how often people read.
Yeah, so it's like I was like I'd rather turn the book into a YouTube series, and that I would give you 50 revisions if I need to.
Okay, so what's stopping you from doing that? So
we were waiting for it to get published and all that good stuff. But yeah, there'll be stuff coming on the channel here.
So I'm not against the written word. Obviously, I write. I'm a writer. I write in the written word. Like, there is value in writing. There are people who do read. There are people who will buy a manual and create a class around that. But I do encourage you to create a class around that uses that book as a resource and help frame it in the minds of people of like, how can you use this physical book as a resource? And since there's 4 of you, maybe the writing part is not for you because you don't really enjoy it. And there are people out there who like really enjoy it. Trust me, they're the ones that give me some critical feedback on everything I write. So give it to that person. Hey, you love that? You really want to, oh, you get down to the specific word. You on the team are going to be the person that is the word heavy, the wordsmithing, the person that loves doing course creation, have them create a course around it. And then you, since you love video and that's your medium, you take those chapters and you create the most engaging content and then monetize it and then sell the books through your YouTube channel.
Right.
And so
that's kind of the plan. Yeah, so you're hitting the nail on the head, Valerie.
I try. It's just, I'm very passionate about, there is an audience for everyone. There's not a world of scarcity. So like, embrace the parts of you. Everyone can be a writer, but if writing's not your thing, be a videographer. And there is a theory about multiple intelligences, and there's like 9, but or 7 to 9, depending on the reference. And there is controversy around it. There are people like, that's not a thing. Consider it a framework that helps us understand something. And so there, according to multiple intelligences, there are people who are more prone to spatial orientation and they learn from body kinesthetics. So like we're talking about like football players. And then there are people who love to read. There are some people who enjoy processing information auditorily, like they just need to hear it. So they're big on those audiobooks. So maybe you want to put it in the format of an
we're gonna have to
audiobook.
start reading that. Yeah, we're gonna have to read it out and people.
And AI can really assist on a lot of those. So you can have a realistic sounding audio performance. There is controversy on that one. I'm going to get so many emails just from this 1 hour with you. But work in the domain that you love, and Alex, like you're too good and too knowledgeable.
I'm very proud of what we did, right? And I'm no regrets with it. I just don't think I was meant to be a writer. That's the only thing.
Too late. You're already one.
I know. Apparently so.
Don't forget to create your Amazon profile.
Yeah, no, I'm looking at an email of all the marketing thing, and one of the things will be the profile and everything. So it'll be good. I'm excited for it. I can't wait to have the world look at it and touch it and read it and do all kinds of learnings with it. But
I feel like we need to have a writer community within our creator community. So like Tom wrote a book, U4 wrote a book, Brittany Joyner wrote a book.
Our very own Bob, my very own Bob wrote a book too. He was inspiration.
Bob wrote a book. Maybe there's something like a readers group or something like that you guys create and you share a chapter or something and create a community of writers, because it's not easy, and it does, lending each other resources is sometimes the only way. Like, and we did that when I got my Ph.D. around our dissertations. There's so many people that start a dissertation and never actually finish it. And I think the only reason many of us were successful at it was because we shared our knowledge. And so when I go over and I tell you all of those things about what you should do, I know you probably have them in a marketing plan somewhere. But for me, no one told me about, oh, I got to create an Amazon profile. And I got to put stuff on there that people like. And I have to have a Goodreads profile. Who's going to read my Goodreads profile? And then, so
But the little details matter.
Huh?
The little details matter.
They do. And no
Yeah.
one really tells you that or trains you that, even in PhD.
This is where having a publisher is helpful, right? Because everything you're reading out, like it's outlined in an email that we got, like, here's the next 30 days while we get ready for this launch. So a lot of that's
really, that's a good publisher. Like, you should commend the publisher for that.
I'm happy with the publisher. I think a lot of the I have a lot of negativity that it sounds like it, but I'm just a negative Nancy all the time in general. But no, I think it was good going with the publisher. We wanted to go through the experience, and yeah, now I can say that I'm published, or I will be.
Yeah, and then when's the party? The launch party, the book release.
Yeah, no, we do have to have a party, and then apparently we're scheduling a party for next year because Teams is at my house.
Oh, so Teams is at your house?
Well, I live in Anaheim. I live across the street from where.
Oh, that's right. So the after party is at your house.
Yeah, there's gonna have to be like an after party. Have you been to Teams yet? Where did you came out of left field here, Dr. Valeri?
You're welcome. That's how I like to.
You are one of the most mysterious people ever.
How so? I'm a natural introvert. I only come out of my hidey holes on special occasions. And then I try to help as many people as I can. And then I go back into my hidey hole. And
I got to make sure you don't hide on me then.
I do. Last week, I was ready to hide from everyone. I was like, the world is so mean. Why you all gotta be so mean? But I made it through. I have an amazing team behind me. So they reshape and reframe the world to make it make sense. And then I'll come back out again. But I told my CEO last week, I was like, yeah, it's the world. Yeah, can we help? Yeah, because it was just the June 19th being on social media. I enjoy diversity. I enjoy community. This is a holiday. I was like out there in social media land being positive and throwing down some positiveness. I think a controversial group takes this holiday and makes a bunch of spam accounts and then spams the interweb. And my LinkedIn for a good day and a half, which overlapped with my Atlassian course, was very not cool people saying some really not cool things about minorities. And I was like, I understand this is a holiday centered on Black folk, but I am a brown folk. And I also take offense as a brown folk, and also on behalf of everybody I know in this other community as well. And then as a human being that just thinks everything you're saying right now is wrong. And we can't, as creators, go out there and say all the things that we want to say because we represent not only ourselves, but our companies and our partnerships.
Right, yeah.
So it was very much a moment for me. And then right after that, I had to do the Atlassian intelligence course, and I did not realize are so polarized over AI. They have some strong feelings about that. So then I got that feedback and I was like, oh, okay. But this week we're all happy, and I've gotten to meet a lot of amazing creators. And so I'm focusing on the positive, and I do like coming out of nowhere, but then I also like hiding in my hidey hole. If you know the location of said hidey hole, I invite people and guests over, but I will be gone. He'll be like, where's Valerie?
You're too far. What made you move out of SoCal? You lived in one of the most beautiful places on earth.
So my dad was in the military, and then I was in the military. So I graduated college when I was 18. My last 2 years of college, was in
You want
Hawaii.
to back that up though? Like you graduated college before everybody else even graduated from high school.
You know, I was motivated. I told you I was picked on in high
I
school.
was
I
gonna
was picked
say
on
now if you
from
don't
middle
look a
school
day over
through high
30
school.
for
Huh?
being as accomplished as you are on paper, you don't look a day over 30.
I
And now I'm
mean,
starting to think that you're
thank
closer to 30
you.
than anything else.
I can show you my gray hairs. Um, but
Not visible.
um,
Non-existent.
so I was really motivated, not one, to not be poor, and two, by the bullying that I got in high school and in middle school, all throughout. It was just not a good scene. So I finished up. I went to Saddleback Community College.
Okay, very familiar.
SoCal. So the first 2 years of my college experience was paid for by the state of California. That's the best thing California ever gave me, besides beautiful weather and the beach. And then my last 2 years, I was at the University of Hawaii because my dad was stationed at Kaneohe military base. And I was still under the age of 18. So I had to finish with an adult in the room. So then I finished college out there, and then I joined the military, and the military took me to different places. And then I got injured in the military. And my dad was coming back from his second or third tour in Iraq, and he was stationed. He worked for HMX-1, the military helicopter for the president.
Mhm.
And I joined when he was stationed in Quantico. And so I joined him at that base because I had to be near a military installation to get physical therapy on my injury. And that's how I ended up on the East Coast. And then I stayed on and off for a decade. Now I'm
Wow.
here. But
Well,
hey, if you ever do visit, I live on a man-made lake that is 8 minutes from the Chesapeake. So look, I got water. You can bring the fam. The future, oh, we can't end it. The future Jira Jr. Oh my God,
oh
that's
my
gold
God,
right
yeah, we
there.
gotta do that.
Dude, I don't know if anyone's following this show. Everyone put comments in the chat, please, and ask for Jira Jr. The
Jared Jr.
next generation of tech heads is going to start in Southern California by Alex's son. He's going to be holding it down anytime dad is sick. He's going to let kids know how to do their homework, how to stay organized, how to track everything in Jira, Trello. Break it down. If you can get him to do some JSM, I hear that's going to be the next biggest thing for creators.
Yeah. JSM's powerful. But no, it's Valerie again, it's just here's an amazing woman who I've never heard of you. All of a sudden you pop out one day and like the way you just latched onto this community, it's palpable. Like I've never seen that before by anyone. And even Ray, who I would say is one of the most extroverted people I've ever met in my life. You quickly became all of our like number one fans.
Well, because I'm very passionate about building community, and sometimes that's not well received because, like, who are you to want to like know me? And I 100% respect those boundaries of people that are like that, but there are so many things in my life that I wouldn't have been able to accomplish without an amazing community of people to support me and to show me the way. And so finishing my PhD would not even be possible without a person named Laura Garapi, who made getting a PhD even achievable because she gave me a graduate assistantship at a library. And that graduate assistantship paid for my PhD, which made it more, because in order to get my PhD, I had to leave my corporate career. Like I had to leave a VP position in order to focus full times on my study. But then I had to pay for it. And like, how am I going to pay for it? Am I just going to be in super debt? And so she gave me that opportunity. And within joining, I don't know if you know your local librarian, librarians are all community focused. And so just by having that graduate assistantship, I had 12 academic librarians at my disposal who supported my journey through my PhD with resources, familiar faces, kindness. I got my first non-A in my life in my PhD program, and I was little puddles of Valeri. Like I was on the floor ready. I'm like, where's the highest building in the university? I can't do this. And a librarian gave me a book called The Gifts of Imperfections by Brene Brown, which is very popular now, but it wasn't popular then. And I was like, what do you mean? I don't have to be perfect. What is this magical thing, these words in this book? And so I get really passionate about building community. And I try not to grumble to the people that kind of poo-poo on community and look more towards competition. And I do believe that there is space in this world for competition. But if you were to ask me, who do I compete with? I don't compete with Alex. I compete with the next version of me, whoever that is. And it's not, I'm not perfect. There's lots of things I don't know. For as much time as I spent in my education, there is a whole world that I'm not good at. But I see the value in Alex, and I see the value in Brittany, and I see Jimmy gets too much of my attention. But I find Jimmy way too fascinating to not pick on Jimmy, because if you look at his stats on the Atlassian community board, it's ridiculous how much information he is giving and insights he is giving to a community of people. And so I'm always trying to like to promote him, because he gives back to so many people. So there are people that are all about competition, and I just don't find that value in competing with others, because I feel like it puts a limiting belief that in order for me to have, I have to take from you. And I just don't think that's true. I think I can have, and I can share some with you, and you can share some with me, or you can have and I can have our own separate thing, and that's fine. So
Yeah,
that's why I'm talking about it.
it reminds me of Hamilton's the one of the last songs at the end of the play, where after he shot Hamilton, Aaron Burr did, and he's having that retrospective that he's realizing, like, didn't have to come to this. The world was big enough for the two of us.
Exactly. Like, and we all can have our own individuals. That's one of the reasons why on my questions, I'm like, okay, so who are you? What makes you different from the other creators? What's that niche that you work in? Because we all speak to different communities, and we amplify our communities by connecting them
So I know you have questions, so ask them away then. Let's get
okay.
we got like
So,
15 minutes, so let's do it.
oh, let me get on the right page. That would also be helpful. I digress.
I think we're gonna need like a part 2, 3, 4, and 5 with Valerie, by the way.
I don't know if people are really interested in hearing my rambles. Like, I think I can hold people's attention for a little bit, but I don't know about how long.
I'd say it's less about what people find interesting and more about what I find interesting.
So
go ahead.
Let's talk about Alex. Alex, I have stalked you on the interwebs, and you know I do love a good research. The thing that interested me in you the most, and there's lots of interesting things, so people of the world, please, I do encourage you to also stalk Alex. But cybersecurity and awareness, and this is one of the things that I think is going to grow even more important. It was always important. It's going to grow even more important. And there's also a deficit in our industry of people that are knowledgeable and on cybersecurity. Like, I think the threat level is growing, and the people that are able to keep up is decreasing kind of scarily. And you have a very strong background working with large organizations that work in cybersecurity. Like, you got an impressive resume. I don't know if you know you.
No, I tend not to. I try not to. Ego is just, it's something that I try to avoid actively.
I mean, to each their own, but I've seen your resume, and the people who are about to stalk you now have seen your resume. And so minimizing risk for engineering teams is incredibly timely and important, especially in the context of AI. And I got all the controversy of AI last week. I know developers think we've had what we call AI now, we've had for decades. Yes, I get that argument. And I also get the argument of the people that say AI is scary and will replace me. I want to focus in on the world of future-proofing cybersecurity around anything. What are your tips? What should people know about?
So I will quote a professor of mine. He wrote a book. Actually, probably one of my inspirations for writing a book. It's called "Smartest Person in the Room," and the concept is that the problem with cybersecurity today, and as it continues to evolve, is not such that we have people that are incompetent in the world of cybersecurity, right? But rather, we have people that try to be the smartest person in the room that hinders their ability to do a good job as a human. And what that means is essentially to improve your cybersecurity stance, there needs to be like this concept of like skin in the game. The people, your team members, your bosses, everybody that works end to end in your companies, they all need to be like equally invested in cybersecurity, and they need to care about it. Like they need to really, really care. But oftentimes, these decision makers that are in the IT field, they take on this like machismo stance of like, I'm better than you, I'm smarter than you, and your opinions don't matter because they're not better than my opinions. And that's where people now start to be turned off. They start to not care as much because, well, it's this his problem or her problem, right? I let them worry about it. But they're not perfect, right? They don't know everything. Like nobody knows everything. And so I think this concept of like if I were to be in charge, right, of a company and say, hey, how do we improve our cybersecurity stance? It would be invest a lot more in just the team element of it, the team building element aspect of it, less about the technical guards because there's a bazillion technical guards, right? Like even cybersecurity companies like Okta, whose only job is to make sure that things are safe, get hacked, right? So you can't cover all your bases. There's just so many infinite bases, but you need to invest more heavily in hiring and maintaining people that are good people so that when the bad things happen, they can react or they can fix it or they can band together to prevent things from happening, right? But right now it's such a, especially in IT, it's such a male-dominated world with so many egos, and you have these people with like a lot of credentials that just make speak down on people, right? And it creates these vulnerabilities in these companies because you have this like jerk in air quotes, right? That's in charge, and those the rest of the technical decisions, right? The should we pursue something? Should we speak up? Should we do something? Is all now based out of fear. And most of the time, you're not going to want to speak up. You're not going to want to do something because you know that the person in charge is either going to approve it or reject it. So it creates this hostile culture, which inadvertently ends up breaking your stuff, making you vulnerable to the world. So that's kind of where I would approach it is really really watch and check the people that are decision makers and see how they treat people, right? See how they're treating the other humans in your company.
So I this resonates with me because some of the big moments in my world, the reason I was able to get through them is because someone on the team who was not necessarily had the biggest title or the most years of experience did that one thing that I really needed to know or to say at that moment. And it's the same thing with cybersecurity. You need everyone in your cybersecurity environment to be diligent, to be active, to be looking and proactive. And the second that there is a fear environment or that there is anything but a supportive environment, people shut down and they don't share their knowledge and they silo it out. They don't say anything, they overlook things, and that's when mistakes happen. So I really value that perspective on cybersecurity. I need at least 3 minutes of you telling me and my audience, where can we follow you? Where can we understand more of your work? Where can we get your insights? I think and also tell me how you think you're different and unique from the other creators from what I see. And I do stalk you, don't get me wrong. I see you're different because you have a very technical background in cybersecurity, working with very large and notable organizations. You understand the government perspective of it. It wasn't necessarily, and you can name drop the companies if you feel comfortable with it, but these are organizations that worked with very closely with our United States government that has insights into leading edge technologies that's not available to the general public. And you talked about it a little bit on your show the other day about how there were two Alex Ortizes and how you definitely don't want that to happen, especially in these types of environments. So I value your opinions and your insights, especially in those areas of information security, cybersecurity. because
Yeah,
you've
no,
had those
definitely.
experiences. And those are huge. Not all the creators have that background. So can you give me at least 3 minutes of a clip of information? This is Alex Ortiz. This is what I'm about. This is where you can find me. This is my audience, and this is how I help them.
Yep. So I'm mainly a YouTuber. I like to start off with that, right? So I mainly love making video, right? So this goes back to our conversation earlier about book writing versus cinematography or making videos. So I love just doing the tutorials. And to echo a little bit about what you said, right? Like people can find me on YouTube making videos, but specifically technical tutorials. And the style of my technical tutorials, I was very intentional when I went on this endeavor because I watched a lot of tutorials out there that were either really hard to understand, so I wanted to make clear tutorials, and two, I watched a lot of tutorials that went did the yada 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 over the most important critical part, and they leave that out. And I thought that would be like, I was like, why would you do that? Like that's the part I want. That's the part I
Because
need.
it's hard. The yada 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 is really difficult to show and do. And you won't skip it though.
I won't skip it, right? So that was the intention of every single one of my videos was to show you the A through Z, the good, the bad, and the ugly of it. But then what I inadvertently started adding or folding into the videos, which is I think the part that resonates the most with people, is I bring in the 10, well, at this point, like 15 years of experience of being in the real world as a Jira admin, but also seeing all the things I was exposed to working in big defense contractors like Boeing's and Northrop's and Raytheon's, right, where I've worked throughout my career. And just kind of seeing how the world worked there, because as you said, right, cybersecurity is a really big thing in the defense world. You don't necessarily want bad actors to get a hold of your defense systems. And so I
That's a
learned
little
a lot
important.
of like, sorry?
I said that's a little important.
Yeah, just a little bit, right? But I learned a lot about what was valuable to companies, but what was also important, and I just started putting into the videos like why the thought process was. Because I can make a video to show you how to add a status, but that's okay. But should you add the status? Which is the right status to add? Why would you add the status? Why would you not add the status, right? Like that kind of insight, like you only get through experience. And and I wanted to just share as much of that to my audience as possible, right? I want to give them the pill they could take that basically took my 10 years at the time of experience and say, okay, I understand why we would like reason this way, right? And to give you like a leg to stand on versus just like, oh, just do what I said because this is the way it should be done, right? So that was kind of how I was trying to differentiate myself. And I think you see that, right, in some of my material and some of the stuff where it's like, you get a lot of Alex's opinions. Not necessarily always a good thing or a bad thing, right? But you get an opinion from me. And whether you agree on it or not, I realized early on in the game that I wasn't really gonna try to please the internet because then I would not have done anything. I think earlier we were talking about the yelling thing, right, in Spanish, and another cultural thing that we have is like my parents, my mom specifically, like she really cares about other people's opinions of like how they perceive me or how they perceive her. Might be a Hispanic thing or a cultural thing, right? But I tell my mom, like, if I cared about those things, I wouldn't have a YouTube channel because my comment section sometimes is mean, right? Like, talk about going to find a place to go cry, like, go read my comment section. And
Yeah, it's rough out there. People don't understand. They think, oh, content creator, yeah, very glamorous. I was like, do you read some of the comments people put on the internet? They're mean. And it
they're
is,
mean.
I think it is a Hispanic cultural thing because we are very like, I remember growing up, my mom's like, don't you put our information out on the street. And I'm like, geez, mom, that's just our neighbor. Our neighbor is the street. It doesn't matter. But I think what you're doing important is not overlooking Alex's opinions, because Alex's opinions are that key piece that makes your content. But also, I think it's important that you're building product knowledge. It's not just the how to create a field or how to create a story, but why do we create stories in general? Where does it come in the life cycle of the product and the workflow that you're trying to accomplish? How does that relate to all of these
Right.
things? Because products change. Like if they change, the most popular products change, but if you can understand product knowledge and how products were developed and for what purpose, then it doesn't matter if the technology changes or there's an upgrade. You already have insights of what the thought process was behind that specific piece. And so you can adapt more quickly. So I think that's very key and critical that you provide that. So people should follow you on YouTube. Any other channels that we should stalk you on?
So on my YouTube, on every single one of my videos, I have a link tree because my link tree shows everything, right? But LinkedIn would be the next big one. But I drive everything through YouTube. That's what I'm trying to turn into a loss leader. Believe it or not, I'm trying to make my YouTube be like the literally the loss leader of the whole business, right? Because I'm trying to build this pretty massive business out of all this, right? But it's a very slow process. The book was a huge side piece of building this whole thing, but I eventually do see. Um, I know, and I wanted to have this conversation with you, and we may have to do it on part two, right? But the Dr. Jira part, I feel very guilty with it. I don't like it. I don't like being a doctor because I didn't put in the time that you did, right?
Yeah, but it's Jira comes after it. Doesn't Brittany also have a doctor in her name? It's okay. I don't
No,
mind.
no. But here's the thought process. The title was given to me, right? Because, and the reason why I embrace it, the reason I love it, is because my end goal is to be a Jira healer for companies that have problems with Jira, right? And so I market myself as the person that you call when things go sideways on you in Jira, right?
I like
And
it.
so that's the whole reason. But yeah, that's kind of my little spiel and
Okay,
who I
my
am.
last question. I promise you it'll be my last one. Maybe my second to last one. I reserve the right to email you afterwards and ask you additional questions.
Anytime, bro. You've opened a door that hopefully never closes.
I don't. I hope it never closes as well. What is your vision? You said you're building something, and it's big. So tell me and tell your audience, what is this big thing? Give us a little bit of a spoiler alert.
Yeah, so I'm trying to build like a whole funnel, right? So it all starts with the YouTube channel because I believe in give, right? Just I want to give everything away, and I don't hold back. As you see during the live trainings that you're an active participant in, like I try to give everything, and I don't cut things out, right? And it's kind of been like the theme, right, where you get what you get it all, right? It's I'm figuring out creative ways to do it to chop it up so you're not sitting there for 10 days of watching videos, right? But there is value in just everything I put out. Like I try to intentionally not make a video that's just like, oh, it's a clickbait or something, right? So I don't do that, at least not often, or only once in a while, right? But the intent is to give you a video that you're gonna find valuable and that will help you. But that's all free. That's just me giving it to you, and really me more learning and reinforcing my strengths and ownership inside of the Atlassian platform. From there, and this is why I'm doing the Atlassian learning, right? Is or the live learning is now I do like a 1 hour webinar that is also free, right? So you're getting again tremendous amount of value, but at the end, I now have accompanying courses that I'm developing in conjunction, right? So each one of these live learnings that I do, and there's going to be about 15 of them by the end of the year, they now will have like an accompanying Udemy course, which is a few bucks, right? 10, 15, $20 to get into it. So that you can then take your learnings from that 1 hour or that 5 minute video and take it to the next level. But then from there, right, it just keeps going up the scale, right? Like where you take this Udemy course, but you got to be able to ask questions, right? And there's value in being able to ask Dr. Jira questions, right? And so that'll be the next part that I build. But the ultimate one is like I'm thinking something far fetched, right? So I've read $100 million offers by Alex Hormozi. So I'm thinking something like a crazy, just like $100,000 A through Z Jira transformation, right? Like I'll come in, roll out your Jira, do all your workflows, do everything you need to do, set up your entire team. You don't worry about a single thing. I come do the whole thing for you, and I bring my team in. We set up your Jira, and we're in and out before you know it, and your team is ready to be productive from
Yes.
like very, very quickly, right? So whatever those are, competing with EYs, but I know Jira really, really well. So that's like the
And that's
big
okay. There is space in this world for EYs and others.
yeah.
The majority, if you do look at the market research, the majority of the tech industry is not EYs and your big four consulting firms. It's tinier ones, especially if you've carved out your own niche and you use training to leverage it. I'm here to support you anything you need on the training side. But then you have the consulting company that what I find in training is you could tell everybody how to create a user manual or how to do training, but they don't want to do it all themselves. They just want someone to come in that is knowledgeable, that they know are knowledgeable, to do it for them. And so I have the same philosophy. Like, if someone asks me a question like, how do you do, I put it all on the internet. Like Brittany asked me that other thing on Slack. I was like, oh, I put it all in my posts. It's all out there. And I gave her all my posts, all of my insights of my marketing plan, my strategies are all out there. And the thing is, it's not because I don't fear the competition of someone replicating my strategy. I am me. I'm my unique thoughts every single day. So no one's going to really steal me. But when it comes right down to it, no one really wants to do it all themselves. So they're always going to hire someone to do it for you. Why not hire Jira Life and Dr. Jira to do it for you? And what I hear, there is a significant market out there. I just talked to the Atlassian partnership people on Monday during their office hours, and JSM is going to be their next big push in the fall. So they'll have more resources for us to take advantage of to get those opportunities that come in. So I wish you luck.
It's an evergreen content for right now. So, but we got to milk it while it's still there.
Yeah, no, you're making huge headway. I mean, published author Alex Ortiz. I will stalk you. I'm on Goodreads. I will like your Goodreads profile and make good comments on all of your, you got to give me a second. You got to feed me the information on all you are. And then I will go through one day and just do Alex love and show you all the loves on all the platforms.
You're a very nice and kind person, Valerie.
Oh, thank you.
I'm so glad that you came into this ecosystem. I think it's the right place for you.
You think so? Sometimes I wonder. I'm like, I don't know if I belong here.
Everybody's very timid. I think you'll get a few people like Brittany, who's like, and like again Ray, who are very more outspoken. But it's a great place. We've got a lot of quiet people. It took me a while to get Rodney to turn on his camera.
Really? I thought that you got him to do that though.
Yeah.
I have someone on my team who always goes on as a caricature and that never turns on their camera. And I'm cool with that. I will be best friends with your caricature. It's beautiful. Well, thank you for having me today. It was a great experience and a great conversation. I hope this is only the start of a long conversation that just continues on for years and years and years. And then when I go out in hiding and go back into obscurity, which will happen again, trust me, I will go back into hiding again. I will make sure you have the GPS coordinates so that you can visit me.
I will. Thank you. And if you're back in California ever, let me know.
Yeah,
I mean, you got to come out for team, right? We didn't even talk about team yet.
Yeah, I got to come out for teams, Del Taco, In and Out, my old high school hangouts. I got to meet Jira Jr. I got to meet Mrs. Jira. I know she's a secret part of our team that we don't
behind the scenes everywhere. Yeah.
Yes.
No, anyways. plan like book out your April of next year already. You're gonna need it.
All right, I'll spend the entire month of April working from SoCal. No problem.
Yeah, not a problem. All right, thank you.
If you have a JSM instance, then you probably need out-of-office assistant for JSM, but you might not know you need it yet. Use Resolution's out-of-office assistant, delegate your approvals in JSM, and fix your round-robin assignments so that your work never stops just because an agent is out sick.